were flipping and knowing every street artist. We had Banksies everywhere. Streetwear is things that you like put your headphones on, you get your backpack, and you get your clothing that you're comfortable to make it through the day. Even like magazines are talking about maximalism, and I'm thinking, does that mean I have to become minimalist now?
Miguel.
What's up?
What up? So this is the first episode of Reconstruct. I'm here with the person, the embodiment of Reconstruct, the thing, my inspiration, my friend, collaborator, partner. I'd call you a mentor, not to butter you up too much. But so, you know, there's a lot to break down, and this is like the first episode, so we're trying to figure it out, right, what it is. But I thought I'd give you a meaty question to start this off, because just sidebar, this is going to be a series of episodes, and sometimes you're going to be interviewing a guest. We're going to bring guests on, and to be clear, we don't exactly know what this is yet, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to figure it out in this episode. So let's just make it really difficult from the start.
Okay.
Reconstruct, which is the latest iteration of your artistic output, which you've had many from what I understand and what I can research on my own. What is the core of this whole thing? Where does this all come from? What unraveled this entire essence, this explosion of art, which currently is manifested in Reconstruct?
Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I'm excited to kind of get this on tape, because I'm kind of like always trying not to be around it. But anyways, so it's you asking me makes me think what it is, and how we got to this craziness was that I'm always making clothing for other brands and stuff, or I'll help them, you know, make the right decisions or whatever. So what I normally do is we manufacture stuff, right? So I thought it would be a great idea to start making clothing out of all the waste. We started Reconstruct in 2017, and before that, with my partner Candy Whites, we have US Alteration that's still open by appointment and stuff. And even before from Barracuda, I always liked the idea of recycling, especially Americana. Why? Because I felt like it needed to have a limit of what you're recycling and the storytelling. So I was like, okay, I'm going to limit to what I like, what I am in love with is American culture and an American design, right? So when I used to live in Mexico City, I would come to LA, and this is one of the places that I used to come. This place used to be a gallery called La Luz de Jesus.
Right here.
Waco, yeah. And it had a bunch of cool artists, and it was like the juxtaposed artists that were like up and coming, like, you know. So I would come here and get inspired from all the new street artists, and would get books and gadgets and incense and stuff. So it was like one of my stops in LA. So when this place became available, I was like, dude, it's the center of LA. Like, we're like on Melrose and Martel. It has a magazine stand, and we can do like all kinds of stuff. I didn't want to do a minimalist store anymore, because I had all this brutalist minimal store. I came from like a Beverly Hills store that was minimal and expensive. The idea was like, I want to get back into the punk rock and the culture of LA and dress people. Like, I wanted to like see a kid from Ventura or from Beverly Hills to come and buy vintage that was all 90s and 2000s, repurposed. We wash it, we reprocess it, and make it like a silhouette that looks like a thing that you could buy at Barney's or a premium store, you know? Barney's doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But my point is that I just wanted to have an accessible. I noticed that a lot of brands were like fast fashion. I was like, I'm gonna do a fast fashion version with this jewels that we have of vintage clothing, and every season do my version of, because I know all the trends, because I'm helping or I'm around all the designers of all the streetwear brands. So I know what's colors are coming, what trends are coming, if camouflage or denim. So I started making pieces, and then we style people and we get a lot of celebrities and stuff. But the beautiful thing about LA, like Melrose, is that you can see, it's like being on the river. Like you could see the most richest, craziest person that buys 20 things, or you might see a kid that just got out of high school and wants to look cool. And so I'd rather people buying 5 things or 1 for a reasonable price that they could get rid of it, or they could rip and they could just get another one, than having this super expensive thing.
Yeah.
We do really expensive pieces when people ask us, but normally we want people to be able to buy it and break it down. And American made in the U.S. product breaks down in a different way because it's all handmade. Like all the t-shirts are hand pulled. Just the materials and the craftsmanship on Americana is it's superior to anything else, at least to my, and all the military stuff. I mean, this stuff is made for us to go to war. So it's well designed. It breaks down incredibly. It holds on incredible. All the Ralph Lauren, all the Levi's, all the classic American garments are so cool, but sometimes they fit really small, especially in the 90s, people were smaller. So we break them down and turn them into different silhouettes. Like for now, everybody's wearing super oversized stuff. So we turned those things that you like into things that you can wear, because it would look silly to wear like a skinny jean right now, at least for this quarter.
Yeah, that was all our rage about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I had to throw all my
It's
skinny
coming
jeans out.
back, like
It's always cyclical, right?
That's what makes people purchase clothing, it's all about the silhouettes and the styling. So we are very sensitive to those things. We just use all these American products, NFL, jersey, soccer, all these things that have to do with American culture, cartoons, and put it all in this crazy mess, but that is curated, There is a control of it. It looks like crazy, but it's a storm plan, And we clean, disinfect everything. We have a little factory that we make all these custom pieces, and we dress people. It's like making a stew for people to come eat.
Yeah.
So it feels good to actually dress cool American kids or international kids. It's just one of those really things that makes me happy. And on the side I do a bunch of other collaborations and help other brands, but this is like my personal project. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense because it's the world is so crazy. Sometimes it's hard to keep up, but hey, we're here.
Well, okay, then this is a good. There's a lot of things to dissect from what you just said, particularly one of them being Melrose. But before we go into that, it seems like you round tripped to something which is near and dear and close to you, this style and this aesthetic. You have admiration for this American style, which is also something we got to talk about. It seems like, from what you're describing to me, you round tripped to something very close to you. And, all the recent collaborations and everything that's happened, it seems like one of those moments where, I think a lot of people who are extremely skilled at art and creative expose, they weave and bob in and out of collaborations and people in industry and ideas, and it's rare that you ever just line up and you're like, this is a thing I love. It inspires me, it inspires other. I have all these collaborations going on now. This is an interesting moment, I think, where things are really, and personal and intimate to you, right? Where does this admiration for this kind of style come from? Because like you said, you're like a chef. This is a little bit more like a chef situation. You're taking a bunch of ingredients, and you said these are American ingredients, American-made ingredients, right? And you're mixing them up together, and you're making something out of that, Both, where does the idea to just take a bunch of shit and turn it into one come from? And why so specifically is it American? What is it that attracts you? And then not just you, but what do you think it is that is so magnetizing about the output here that makes it, we could basically We could basically lose our empire status tomorrow, but somehow I still believe like this is the inspiration artistically throughout the world.
Well,
right?
American culture is epic, you know. I'm originally from Mexico City, so, and I was a skater, you know. So everything that I was obsessed with was like skateboarding, punk rock music, a little bit of hip hop, and you know, and just culture in general. That to me, culture was American culture coming from Mexico City, but I think all this inspiration comes from music. Like I was a huge, I'm still am like, music was everything to me. Like, I, I grew up being by myself a lot, so I would just always have the radio, and I was always digging. I was always looking for the underground thing. So I think people mixing and DJing made what I am now. Like, I'm kind of like a DJ on clothing. That's my inspiration. And I take all this music things and this stories that are in my mind are photographies of the campaign of Ralph Lauren or Marlboro or my favorite like punk band or rock and roll band, and put it together, and it all of a sudden I see all these elements. It's making like a salad or something. And it's funny, now we have a team that everybody's older and they're like real crafty and stuff. So you're right. Now we have the right team. We have a tailor, sewers, a place where we can curate, a wash house, a demand for a product. You know, it's interesting. Now that you're saying it, it makes me think. I've never really thought about it, but I'm really passionate about making things and mixing all those things. I just think that it doesn't matter. I don't care that America is like the superpower or whatever. To me, it's just the hub of culture. Like in California, the reason I live in LA is because right now, for example, Melrose and LA is not at this hottest peak, but still, it's where everything comes together. People from all over the world come with their dreams and their passions and with their taste and their curations and you know.
But real quick, what do you mean it's not at its peak? And the reason I ask is because if you ask a 19-year-old walking down the street, they think LA's at its peak, right? I find that having lived in New York for so long, where the same conversation happens, you can't tell me that New York right now is better than 2004 New York. You cannot tell me that. But guess what? To like a whole boatload of people, it's way better. What are you talking about, right?
No. I would never live anywhere else. Yeah. Like, at least not now.
But what changed? What changed for you, or what do you think it is that changes a place?
Well, look, I used to come to LA, and it was incredible when I was a kid. And you're right, but I was in Italy, I was in Paris, I was in Mexico City not too long ago, or in London, and the energy is like fucking crazy. Like people are dressing up, they're stunned.
Don't you feel like
they
that's
are
new,
here
though?
too?
Don't you
and
feel
it's
that's
coming
new?
back, and our responsibility is to bring it back, to be a part of it. But it's getting better. But since COVID, the energy has changed.
For sure. And the thing I want to bring up, having lived in Budapest for a couple of years, having lived far outside of the system here, what I noticed is that I feel like we're in a time that's changed very dramatically. Like even 15 years ago, to get a certain energy, you had to get on a plane. Still in the 21st century, you had to get on a plane and land in that place. Even with TV and the internet by early 2000s, you still had to get on a plane and land somewhere. You don't really got to get on a plane and land anywhere now. You could be in the fucking Amazon with a phone and know what the coolest shit is on Melrose and get that shit shipped to you and know the lingo and be that guy down in fucking Brazil in the Amazon, you know, like not remote from any city, you know?
I know what you mean. But for example, I'm here almost every day because I'm learning from the kids. Like I see kids from all over the world and I don't have to be traveling as much. I wouldn't be able to create or have, you can't just, I mean, you can, but I don't want to make things just out of looking at Instagram or like social media. I do look at everything just like everybody else, but I like seeing these crazy kids now that they're wearing all black again. And like, they think like all these Rick Owens looking things are, you know, they look like they listen to death metal, but they're listening to hip hop. Like but no one could explain to me the way their conversations. Like at my age, I need to learn from them. So I'm really inspired just to see what they smell like what they wear, what they're eating, what their passions are. So I think Melrose is still that. And I like that Melrose, if there's an underground area, it's still underground and it's still connecting to people from all over the world. Like, yeah, downtown is underground for sure. I lived there for years. But there's something about like the OG of Melrose. Like people still come, they think they're gonna get their studded jacket. There's vintage. There's, and I just don't want to be here only when it's like it's hype. I want to keep it real to myself.
I think that's the fun moment, honestly, is when you can keep it real to yourself. That's the real fun moment. You know?
And it's challenging. And everybody's like, Miguel, retail is dead, bro. Like you just go, get a big ass warehouse and do all this content. And I'm like, dude, but that's gonna disconnect me from everything that I'm passionate about. It's gonna turn into my job. Yeah. It's gonna be like making merch for people, like I do sometimes. But it's not fun for me, Like,
well, and speaking about Melrose, right? I mean, I think it's important to dissect Melrose because this isn't. I jokingly call you the mayor of Melrose, and
well, definitely not. There's a queen of Melrose.
Okay, and I'm still new, so maybe I gotta figure.
No, I mean I've been here for 20 years. I've done Blue Demon, Barracuda. And
so where were these shops though? Because I just moved here in 2018. So school a person who knows LA, but doesn't like. Where was Barracuda? Tell me about the other shop, and I want to know about the cultures of those places to help understand how we got to this.
Fair
so
enough.
Start with Barracuda.
So okay, well it started even before. I had stores in Mexico City. I had a skate park.
You had a skate park.
I had the first skate park in Mexico City. Mini, yeah. But you got to remember, in Mexico City, it rains half a year. So we would take plywood from everywhere. It was a whole thing. I could talk about it for an hour. So I was a skater all my life. Then I opened the first store in Condesa. There was no retail stores in Mexico City. Condesa is kind of like Soho of Mexico City. I finished college, and then I just moved here because I had this dream of I wasn't going to become a pro skater because I was 27. I was amateur, but 40.
But did you compete?
Huh?
Did you compete?
Yes, I won like street, mini, and vert contest, or second or third in Mexico City. But if I would have lived here, it would have been different. It just when you skate with better people, you just become a better skater. So I was getting older, and my knees were hurting and everything, and I was like, look, my second passion is clothing, and I'm not gonna like right now. Mexico City is booming in fashion, but back in the day, you couldn't even find the right fabrics. So I sold everything, gave everything away, and I rented a store, and I lived in the back of the store. My store was called Blue Demon as a Mexican wrestler. And
Luchador
masks, yeah. We still sell luchador masks here.
I love them, I know.
Well, that's the reason. We sell luchador masks here because that was the original. My original store was Blue Demon. And we sold Mexican things that I thought were cool, like World Traveler. Japanese would eat it up. And even then, we would do like hand embroidery on military jackets and stuff. And then I started Barracuda. Barracuda was my dad's car. So we called it Barracuda because we didn't know what to call it. And it was a minimal white store, and it became this huge thing. We carried every streetwear brand. Before Fairfax, there was Barracuda, and a lot of brands that didn't have a storefront would have. And then we would go all over the world, or we would start reselling stuff. And we carried Bape and Nikes and all this shit, and we didn't even have the accounts. We would trade with Japanese kids for goods. It was kind of like before its time. Chris and Eddie and all the guys from Union and stuff would get mad at me because I would, or Dom would be like, why are you selling this stuff? It's just not even your account. We were just hustling, trying to survive, and sold all these brands.
What was the period right now? What years are we talking?
Probably 2001.
2000. Okay.
Yeah. So 2001 to 2008. So then we moved across the street by the high school, and then we've had real accounts by then. Nike, we did a thing with Miguel. We had a Nike SB shoe. It became a thing. We had a mini ramp by Red Bull. Shepard Fairey would come DJ. We had Justice. The guys from Radiohead would come out. Like, it would be crazy. You know, we had craziest parties. Cool Cats came and did a pop-up. Like, it was like the golden years, maybe 2005, 2006. And then in 2008, Barracuda, even though it was great, we had the wall mini ramp and parties. Retail was great. 2008 came, and basically, we closed in 2009 because we couldn't. We made a boxing club out of it because we were getting money from the wall. So instead of having artists, we started renting it.
Yep.
We were getting free rent from there. And then it took so long to get better, so we had to shut down. So I was out of Melrose from maybe 2010 till we started US Alteration in Beverly Hills. And we did collabs with
When does that start? What year are we talking?
2000, maybe 8,
Okay.
with Candy and in this building in Beverly Hills, and we did collaborations.
Why Beverly Hills though? What you go from the center of punk and underground culture, you know, punk. Let's just call it style, not music, right? But like, what happens? Beverly Hills. How does that
Interesting.
change
So we did a bunch of art gallery stuff. We were flipping and knowing every street artist. Like, every street artist that you can think of came to Barracuda, either graffitied or came or sold their art. I mean, dude, even Banksy was like, we had Banksys everywhere at the store. Shepard Fairey, Tim Biscuit, Gary Basement, The Beautiful Losers. I mean, it's endless, the amount of like what happened with this art. So I met all these artists. So people from Beverly Hills started coming. That's how I met Candy, my partner from Beverly Hills. And we started recycling high-end vintage couture. She's a huge collector, and she started letting me chop up her Gucci and
from her private collection.
Yeah.
She says you just start going.
We
to
started
town.
fucking destroying it, and then I was like, you know what? This is gonna be only sold to your friends. We got to put a little bit of street on it. So together we made a bunch of pieces, and we had U.S. Alteration. It sold in Union.
What does put street on it mean, though?
What it means to put
literally.
street on it would be things that people wear on the street, like streetwear. People think of streetwear like, I don't want to say names, but I think that streetwear is things that you, like in New York or Mexico City or London or Tokyo, like, this is what you put on. You put your headphones on, you get your backpack, and you get your clothing that you're comfortable to make it through the day, right?
Yeah, but
Like,
there's a boldness to streetwear. So at the same time, you know, my friend always used to comment, do you remember the Vault in New York City?
I
The
remember,
Vault
yeah.
uptown in Harlem. I used to shoot videos for them. The trade-off was I got a bunch of free clothes. And, you know, to me, there was just fun, big graphic tees. Everything was big. The shoes were huge. This was like this is 2000s, right? Definitely
right.
different style. But that was like, to me, it felt comfortable. But to other people, it was like, damn, that's loud, bro. You're loud. Like, that's bold. And it's like, there is something about streetwear, no matter what the trend is, that it's like, usually it's like what the person within the clothes feels comfortable with. But to people who aren't streetwear people, it's like, damn, that's loud. That's a loud style, you know. It's bold, you know.
Well, it's a language.
Yeah.
It's like speaking. It's like playing music or knowing a craft. Like, there's a code of you know, and the sneakers became part of it. Even though right now the sneakers are dead, but at that time sneakers were everything. There was like limited so it was all communication. It's an unspoken language that you know what you're, and that's people that were cool, and they were like the tastemakers started making their T-shirts and their hats, and they started association, and they would collaborate with bigger brands to make sure that their quality was legit, and brands wanted the heat from the street, right? But it was an underground scene, and you would listen to this mixtapes and this hip hop and this like bands that were like underground, and that's why I was attracted to it. The moment that they started commercializing it and stuff, it's like,
Do you think that starts to happen with the Nike SB though?
yeah, of course.
That to me was the moment.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I have my friend Robbie started getting cool skaters like Paul Rodriguez and people like that on the team, and all of a sudden, people started wearing them. But not only that, the sneaker guys started seeing that there was small amounts of product that were being made, so they started collecting them, and I talked to Sammy Bodecker, the president, and Mark Parker back in the day, and they were like, well, I know it's really attractive and it's collectible but it also started because there was a small market. It was only skateboarding.
Yeah.
So they weren't trying to make 5,000 pairs of shoes. And kids didn't want 5,000. Skateboarding was a niche market, you know? They were competing with like skate brands. And it just blew up, you know?
The moment I saw BMXers start wearing Nike SBs, I said, oh, here, this is it. This is the moment. This is the moment. And, you on the one hand, like, there's this whole thing, a little bit more in BMX at the time, I think, than skating, where the whole sellout thing. It was like you took a check from who? Like Dave Mira, who was ostensibly one of the best BMXers in the world, at that time everybody hated on because he got paid millions of dollars from Harrow to ride a Harrow and wear DC shoes and have his own shit, And it's like, but if you're in that position, aren't you?
Oh
gonna
no,
do
I mean,
that?
I'm not.
Like, right?
Of course you're gonna take it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that sellout shit. If anything, it's a platform for it to express.
Hell yeah.
But there should be a control of the creative. Like I see a lot of the times the brands that you collaborate, they'll tell you what they want from you, and it's kind of like, and there are so many collaborations that it doesn't make sense anymore. Like,
well, okay, good. Because we could really
get lost.
This is like the conversations we have when we have cheesesteaks, and that'll be a whole other podcast. But before we get too down this rabbit hole, which is an amazing rabbit hole, you mentioned collaborations, and like I don't want to let that pass because every time I talk to you, you just slip out very nonchalantly and humbly these different collaborations you've done with major artists, major brands, and you just kind of keep doing them, dude, and it's happened your whole life. So like, I think before we even go into the specifics, like what is it about a collaboration that you think it really, dude, it either works or it doesn't for a person. Either a person's good at collaborating or not. You're clearly very good at it, So what is it about collaborating that you enjoy? And then I would definitely like name off some of the collaborations that you think helped spiral things in a good direction from the beginning or even recently.
Like for example, the last collaboration one of the last collaborations we did was with Ford Mustang Complex Gun, which normally I think the car culture is going to be the new sneakerhead, So to me, to be able to get early on a collaboration with a car, it's epic, I think it's super important, an American car, So that's rad. I mean, normally, honestly, the collaborations that I have done is because I get to know the brand and we started connecting, just like we met and we're collaborating, even making these. Like with Diesel, I was friends with the owners of Diesel and we just became friends. And there was a moment that it was like, hey, can we just do something? We have all this inventory. Can we destroy it and make new pieces? And it was great. And now the dream is to collaborate with all the companies that they own, like, Margiela, Vivian Westwood, Marnie. Like, imagine if I could destroy all of that couture that they do and make pieces out of it. But anyways.
How do you not get lost in the sauce of a collaboration? Because what can happen is that they can be like, this guy is just this artistic explosion and look at all this shit, it's crazy. And then they bring you in and then they have their own creative teams and they have their own people calling shots. And this is probably something a lot of people never figure out because there's no answer. But like, how do you maintain your sauce that they came to you for without stepping on people's toes, but also without them watering down your product and watering down your vision, your art? How do you maintain that balance?
Well, it's a relationship. You have to lose some battles, It was really hard. It was easy at first with Diesel, but then Diesel was so big, corporate in Italy was like, what are you doing? They didn't understand
your process.
They did. I mean, look, we're a store on Melrose. Diesel is like, but I think it worked out. and now now looking back at it, I think it's great. We did a collab with Levi's in Mexico City in their house, and we brought to Mexico this idea of recycling, and now they're doing it's I see kids in Mexico in the hood making their own repurposed stuff. So it's just, it makes me happy to see that I wasn't crazy, you know? Obviously, I'm not saying, I don't want to take the credit of recycling, but I've been doing it long enough, and I know how hard it is, that just to see it become a trend all over the world, and that people are conscious about. I know from firsthand how much waste we have by making clothes. So it just to have the fact that kids have the mentality of recycling is so cool.
For sure. And I'll give credit to what you're saying, because one of the first times I'm in LA, it took me a while to get to Melrose. Like, it took me like my third time to get to Melrose, actually. Actually, I had a shoot here with a Japanese artist, and the producers were pissed at me because I was like, we got to shoot on Melrose. The place is crazy. They're like, can we shoot anywhere but Melrose? If you're from LA, shooting in Melrose, you're like, dude, that's so washed up. For me, being from New York and like coming in fresh from Eastern Europe at the time, this was insane to me. I was like, this was for a Japanese audience. I was like, this is what we're gonna show. This shit's crazy, you know? I went, did a little shopping, got some stuff for set. You got to get fresh for set. And I remember rolling into here and being like, wait, what the fuck is going on? Because it reminded me of a style I did when I was like 18, 19, 20 that I never came back to. And I saw you doing it successfully, and like, you know, just taking many different things. It's a kind of a documentary style in a way, because you are documenting pieces of time and different cultures, and you're putting your spin on them, you know? And this style that I think you've been doing for a while, what's crazy about being right here is that this is such an intersection of music and art that you can have profound impacts even on myself as a filmmaker. That's what's so cool about this style, is that it lives outside of clothing, you know, and it's really based upon who you are as a person. And what's cool is that your paintbrush just happens to be fabric, you know, and scissors, you know, and that's how you encapsulate this style.
Now you see it a lot, but
because the culture changed.
Yeah. Well, all stores, I notice now that a lot of even like magazines are talking about maximalism, and I'm thinking, does that mean I have to become minimalist now? Because what I'm into is to be the rebel.
That's why I love you, yes, and that's why we're friends. Yes.
I like the underground part of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm working on a new brand and stuff, but I think repurposing and reconstruct has a long way, especially now with all the imports and everything that people have inventory. Like, for example, with Linkin Park, we did a bunch of their leftover merch, and we sold hundreds of pieces that we made for them out of there right before they came out again. So I think that there's still a lot of room in the world for a brand like Reconstruct that we're going to be repurposing and stuff. But
well, real quick, how does a collaboration like Linkin Park come to Reconstruct, to Miggy? How does that happen? Because that, I think a lot of people who are interested in this whole thing, a question I get asked a lot is like, how did you get in touch with that person? How did that person hit you up? A lot of times they don't know that it's like, it's the most uninteresting, unmagical thing ever, you know? How does a collaboration like I get Ford, right? And I get Levi's. Linkin Park, how does that come about? What is it?
It's simpler than, so they used to have a shop across the street from Barracuda. Joe he's a director, he's the DJ, and he's basically, he's kind of like the creative director of a lot of things for Linkin Park. And I used to make pieces, repurpose pieces for the band, for their videos. So I didn't know they were gonna relaunch, but I started seeing him around and stuff, and then he basically came in and was like, hey, would you make some pieces for us? And I was like, yeah, but I thought I was gonna make 20. And they just shipped all this stuff, and they went online, and it just sold like crazy. But again, honestly, all the collaborations that I probably could think of have been, it's friends, you know? Like the reason that we collaborate with Union does Jordans and huge collaborations, but Chris is my friend, you know. I've done stuff with like Undefeated because they're my friends. Like I'm working on doing a thing with Vlad from Pleasures because he's my friend, you know. The truth is that honestly, we don't have a rep or anything. All the collaborations that we actually had are through friends. We did a collab with Champion, and it was because the creative director of Champion is my boy, you know.
Okay.
So, and the funny thing is that a lot of my friends, I mean, I'm older now, so a lot of my friends are either on the radio or directors, or they're on the brand side of things. So now they all grew up. Like, for example, Israel used to run Barracuda. He was my manager. Now he designs Stussy, you know? You know, a lot of the guys that were on the sneaker stores are running Adidas.
And that's the same for all the skaters and BMXers now. They're all behind the scenes, making the frames, running the events, doing, you know.
I'm friends with Christian Hosoi now. He was my hero, you know? Like,
Yep.
So it's just, but again, this is what Melrose does to me. So yeah, some people give me some feedback about Melrose and they're saying, oh, well, look at this shit. But to me, this is my comfort space, and I don't know how long we're going to be here because our lease is going to run out, but I'm probably going to get another store in Melrose in a couple of years when our lease runs out. Because I would just want to be around just because that's my learning thing. I don't have to be traveling.
Right. Where do you, well, let's do a little Melrose 360 here, because to me, it's like one of the big reasons I moved here. I came here for a music video. I worked with a production company down the street across from the Starbucks. They're called Cyclical Films. They had an office on the second floor, right? Like right above like a wig shop, whatever it was, like 10 years ago. I'm with my wife, who had never been in LA before, and she's just like, is this LA though? She's like, just like, LA's, it takes you forever to know LA. It takes you forever. You got to be here for a year to know Los Angeles. You can't know it in a week.
100%.
So I was like, yeah, babe, like this is it, you know? And like, so this was her only, for a week, we were here, you know? And after our week here, we were so magnetized by this energy that it's funny, you move here and you realize that, okay, there's a lot of different chunks, you know, and there's a lot of different like things kind of like Melrose. There's Abbot Kinney, you know, there's like Spring Street in DTLA or Broadway in DTLA. Like there's every area's got like their version of Melrose, where it's like us, it's very American. It's like a strip of commerce, condensed, and a lot of energy, and then it kind of dithers off, you know. But nothing matches what happens here. Nothing. I ended up my first year here doing a bunch of content for a guy from Australia, a rapper from Australia. And he was like, yeah, he's like, we got to go to Melrose and like do the vintage shopping. And in my head, I'm like, I was already like, why do you want to go? Like, let's just go, let's do something else. He was like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is, people talk about this in remote towns of Tasmania, you know, like Melrose. Like, oh my God, you're going to Melrose. You got to bring you got to bring bags and bags and bags of clothes back, dude. Because that might be the only time you get to touch what this essence is, the swirl, you know? So what is it that you see about Melrose? Because we all know people talk about Melrose of the past. What is it now that you think it is? And what is your vision of it for the future? Not that I'm saying you're the architect of Melrose, but you've been here long enough.
Right.
You could probably foresee where things are going and what things are. What's the vision? What's the layout?
I mean, look, before I had a store in Melrose, I would go to Camden Town in London, or like to the flea markets in Paris and Thailand to the night market, you know? So I'm smart enough to know that this is for LA, even though there's cool ass places like York Street's really cool. You know, I have good taste. I like really nice shit. I really do like really nice shit, but I still like the real underground shit. So I feel like Melrose has me with one foot on hell and one in heaven. Like I get to hang out with this crazy celebrity artist or this homeless dude that's my homie that charges his phone here. And it's a community. There's a guy selling fruit outside, you know? And I always feel at home when I'm with my people, because I don't come from a high end thing. I'm from the street, you know. So it keeps both of my sides, you know. I live in Pasadena now. Like, I have a family. You know, I love it. But this gives me the edge. I don't have to be out at night. I see the craziest outfits. I see people from all over the world, and it keeps me young, at least creatively, you know.
Yeah.
So what I think is that people are coming in and everybody's trying to make a buck out of it. But that's the cool thing about it. Imagine how boring it is to go to a fucking street that you could just go to Rodeo and see just high end, high end, high end, high end, high end. It's boring. Here you can see all kinds of colors. You see the Jewish guy, you see the Korean guy, you see the guy that's smoking weed, you see a coffee shop, you see 9 hair places, you see.
No, the cross
Like-
of culture here is insane.
Like, bro,
It's
I would
insane.
not change that for it. And if someone thinks I'm the crazy one, well, fine, because I think that everybody else is crazy. I don't want to be in the soup of the cool scene or whatever, you know? I love what's happening in La Brea. My friends are there. But, dude, I'm thinking as a business, I'm like, bro, you can't even park there after 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fairfax, I was never part of Fairfax. I love it. We almost moved there. I was just, it was kind of like in between me. I had Barracuda, and I was like, you know what? I think I belong to Melrose. But I don't know what the future is, but I know where I want to be. I'd
Things are
rather,
closing down. I mean,
Dude,
and just
half
in
of the
LA,
places are
Strip.
closed.
You've been on the Strip recently?
100%.
A lot of shit closing down up there, dude. You know,
things
like,
are crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is crazy. Look at between the fires and the change of president and the
Melrose. We don't have a crystal ball, and what I've learned about humans is we can never predict the future. We never fucking know ever what's going to happen. What is interesting is both you and I have been in this long enough to see how things are cyclical. Like the hottest fucking camera is the one I used to shoot BMX videos on 20 years ago, and I couldn't wait to get away from that. Couldn't wait to get away from it. Now it's back. Now it's all. But I had been told by a friend who was from San Bernardino County in New York, a photographer friend of mine. I was editing a music video and I was showing him like these just filters I was just throwing on top. He's like, "Ha, that's cool. We were doing that shit in like the 70s and 80s." And I was like, at first I thought it was a little bit of shade, and I was like, nice. He's really breaking it down to me. It's like this thing just circles and circles and circles, and it's cyclical. So do you?
now there's like apps, no, like that gives you a filter, and then you're.
There's apps for the way I edit now with rotoscoping, the little cutouts I do and shit. Like you don't gotta even fuck with it, you know.
But look, at the end of the thing, people notice. Like you think that they don't, but they'll notice that there's a craft. Even the way that things are lit up, even the way that you present things. Like people, you can't think that your audience are ignorant, because they're not. Some of them might be, but some of them might be, and they still for some reason are attracted to it. So your craft and all that stuff, you know, there's always going to be a spot for a cinematographer, for a director.
It's an interesting conversation because I think this is something a lot of people have a fear about and don't know how to navigate. You've figured something out, and by the way, I can say that like no idea is original. Society and history all interlink with each other, you know. But you come upon something and it starts working, right? And then you find success. You start monetizing it. It starts doing well. People start noticing. You figure something out, particularly in this world where everything's so democratized that you kind of do everything everybody else is doing, like you said, with an app, you know. And you keep pushing and you keep trying to be unique and trying to find that thing that like no one else can do, right? And you get there, and before you know it, you might start seeing it other places. It does not mean, right? It does not necessarily mean that they saw you and copied you, right? That's just how the world works. That the energy is out there. But how do you move, and how do you not get down, and how do you keep persisting and succeeding, knowing that no matter how hard you work on something, at some point, somewhere else in the world, somebody else is going to be on top of that at the same time, or some brand or some company is going to be like, yo, let's monetize this whole thing and blow it up, you know? How do you move forward? How do you not get stuck in this zone where you say, fuck it, you know what, I just got to do what everybody else is doing to keep. And I see that a lot, where people start out and they figure out something super dope, but before you know it, they just spend their life chasing the trend, because it's really difficult to uncover something unique and then have it blow up without it being attached to you, right?
Well, I think that's the real test to see if you really are the guy or you're creative. Like, obviously, it does hurt your feelings when you're all of a sudden put 25 years of your life on a project, and all of a sudden you see people that have no experience doing it. But it's just what it is. It's just reality, you know. You just have to keep moving and keeping true to yourself. Because even if people are trying to do the same thing, it's not going to be the same. You're just going to make your version of it. And yeah, like for example, a bunch of people have done repurposing, and they realize that it's not as glamorous that it, you know, it's easy to make 2 or 5 or 10, but we're making hundreds of pieces weekly, and we're dressing people. So to maintain that, it takes a lot of work and a lot of not fun things, you know. So you really have to be passionate about it to continue. Same with film, you know, and editing and lighting, you know. So I just feel like we just have to keep pushing ourselves, and we're just gonna get better at it by getting talented people in your world. You're just gonna become stronger.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, okay, good question. So I think process is one of those things where you don't exactly want to tell everybody your process, but on the other hand, I think it helps people understand.
I dare them to do the process. I mean, clothing, I just saw you setting this up. You guys, this is crazy. Like, you know, people don't know what it takes. Clothing goes through hundreds of people's hands. They make the fabric, they dye it, they shrink it, they cut it, they designed it, you know, they style it, they drew it, they print it, all the embellishments, the shrinkage, you know, sizing, merchandising, packaging, labeling it, folding it, steaming it.
There's an
shipping.
art to folding. There's an
like,
art
bro,
to folding.
it goes to so many, and there's always something that's gonna fuck things up. There's gonna be mistakes, and you just have to keep it moving, you know? Imagine this on recycling, you know? Like, it's so hard. So, you know, you have to be really passionate again to be able to do it, you know?
So all right, so like in a nutshell, what's your operation? Like how do all these clothes get here? Like what's the process curatorially? I mean, this stuff has to be curated. I know you're not just like...
No, of course.
And this is all these clothes, this is a huge process of curation. Like what goes into that? And like, does that happen at the same time as production?
Yeah.
Like it's all happening at once.
So, first of all, we in our mind thinks, okay, what direction we're going to go after football or whatever. Like right now, we're selling a lot of jerseys or a lot of denim or a lot of camo, right? So we source all this, not just whatever camo. It has to kind of be the real thing, like ripstop. It has to be made jeans that are like Wrangler or Levi's. I mean, it has to be from Americana. Why? Because that's the rule of the brand. I don't know why I made it harder for myself, but people actually notice once you actually do it. And then we go through this process that we do an oxygen wash where we clean and disinfect, kind of like the sheets in the hotels and stuff. We clean and disinfect everything. We have different kids and different companies that we source with. We get first pick a lot of vintage stuff. Obviously, the premium craziest stuff that is the like the crazy metal shirt from Metallica or Aussie T-shirt. The Grails we sell those, right?
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
destroy that stuff. But
which I respect, because
well, of course.
that says so much about you. You're like, no, this is a grail within this industry. It's a niche within a niche within a niche, and you're like, we can't fuck with this. And you just throw it up, and you're like, this is, and there's respect in that, dude, because you're not always sometimes your output is just knowing that this thing that exists is already dope on its own,
100%. And that's why we sell vintage stuff. What we really destroy is things that people, they're like the ugly ducklings that people, like all the, like hunting clothing. Hunting clothing, we used to have pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets of hunting. And we're like, well, we're not really hunting, like we're not pro hunting. So we started stitching it with like fluorescent colors, So it was like the opposite of hunting, And now it's a trend. Like people started wearing it.
Yeah.
Like Travis Scott started wearing it, and all of a sudden, but probably started wearing it because we started bringing. We used to get really good deals on all that
And
stuff.
you just get it. You'd be like, fuck it, let's get it for a rainy day. Let's just get it.
No, we get it because I like it.
Okay.
Because look, I know all my friends are designers. I'm following. I know 6 or 9 months what's going to be the trend because I'm in the industry. The thing is that I can pick those trends, and 2 days later, I have pieces with those trends on the floor. That's why stylists come here, because we know the silhouettes that are going to be looking cool for them. We don't make shit up. We are following what the pulse of the trends are.
Yeah.
Imagine how wrong we would be if we were like, oh, I'm creating, I'm going to do this. No, everything has a reason. So we make shirts long sleeve, and the colors are fall, and like everything is kind of like a brand. And the silhouettes and the styles and the fits are what's on trend, like what Miu Miu, Prada, whatever brand from high end is using, we're bringing it to the street, So we get all this stuff. There's things that we know. We know that it's going to be the trend, And then we start making it with the silhouettes of the things. And we put our spices or whatever, We even dye it, we bleach it, we oxygen wash it, we print it. We do all kinds of processes. And then it makes it to the store. And we make 10 or 5 pieces, and then we're like, okay, we sold those 5 pieces.
Okay.
And then we start making them, and
Well, the interesting thing though is every piece is a 101. No, every piece is a 101.
they are all 101, but they are all available in different sizes, and the same silhouette. So like online, we call it random selection, and basically you have a pant that's made out of a bunch of t-shirts. We started making a skinny one. Now we have a medium. Now we have an extra wide.
But the same types of fabrics, the same ingredients.
Same ingredients. Like if it's made out of polo shirts, we use the same, but they're all different. So, but it is truly random because my sewers, I want to make sure that I tell them to make sure that it doesn't, like it can't be planned, because then you could tell it's planned. It's really, really random. And it's really fascinating how people think that things are planned. Oh, look, this is my favorite team, and like when I was a kid, I used to wear this.
Yeah.
People find the story with these pieces, and they select it out of all of it. It's really interesting.
Well, going back to the one of one thing, that's one thing that you reinforced in me, because I got into this whole thing of I'm an art collector. I started to spend way more money on buying art and collectibles than I should. And I should be putting that money into my own process, honestly. But I got so motivated by having other people's stuff in my working space and being and it's an obsession now. It's an obsession. I have my favorite artist, like Sloan is one of my favorites. I have an obsession with owning art by other people. I used to be pure minimalist. I had 2 bags for 15 years. That was my life. Now it's a whole thing. And when I walked into your store and saw like all the collectibles and all the art, and I mean, you own so much art, you own so much interesting art, and I think that's a big separator. You're not just an artist, but you're an art collector, right? You collect art, and I think that informs your process, and it informs why all these pieces to me are one of one. Like how does that come about though? What came first? Your fascination with owning art and being surrounded by it, or did being an artist give you an appreciation for that?
I'll tell you what happened. So in 2008, when shit hit the fan, I had every shoe. I collected shoes, right? Because I was into shoes.
You're a sneakerhead.
I collect denim now, but back in the day, I collect all kinds of stuff. But the 2008 the sneakers saved me, and my Banksies, for example, saved me. I bought Banksies for $100 prints, and I sold them for 20, 30,000.
Wow.
So in 2008, that's
Wow.
what saved me.
Art saved you during that
but
economic.
that's the real truth why I buy it.
Wow.
Just like people flip things. So I don't buy sneakers anymore because that ship has gone. Unless, they're like my friends' collaborations or whatever. But, for example, all this art, by the way, is things that my wife doesn't like. So that's what's not allowed in the house. So
Is your house crazy? Are you like? Is it filled with shit? Like, I know how much things you collect, dude. It's insane.
Well,
like,
I have my factory. I have storages.
Okay,
And
they're
my
all like
house,
this kind
my
of?
house is curated.
I bet.
It's curated.
Of course.
But I move things around. Like nothing stays. Like I like furniture. I like objects. You should come.
I would like to.
But
Especially
yeah.
if all the chairs are like this, bro.
Well, no, they're better than those. They're better than those. Because, like, dude, you got to remember, I'm from Mexico City. Like, I'm from the hood. I've never had access. So
what area? What district? Like, what? Break it down from Mexico City.
I'm from an area called by the airport, Colonia Federal.
Okay.
And I grew up in Condesa, which is like the Soho of Mexico City. But
Okay.
when I was a kid, I was in the hood. So I imagine me looking at Wallpaper magazine and looking at Eames and Capellini and all this crazy Italian furniture that I dreamed of. Like, I had a wallpaper subscription because my mom used to work at this agency. And I would look at all these things and I was like, bro, people live like this? So now that I'm older, I could buy those things when I can. Same with cars. Like, I'm the back of my mind still thinks like that, So even though I like vintage clothing, I really have good taste for like high-end premium design things, objects and furniture and cars and
But it's
everything.
so fascinating because this is so fascinating to hear how you put two and two together with that. A lot of younger people don't, and I don't expect them, but they don't know this 07, 08 shit, how crazy that was. That's when I came into the industry, when everything was over, right? It was crazy. Maybe even crazier than now, honestly. But
It's definitely crazier than that.
crazy now. But like you're saying that it's crazy that art saved you in that moment, Like, and I think that you.
But again, art saved me. So look, because I'm around this, I know a bunch of artists, and they sell me or trade me, or between a Rolex or a piece of art, whatever. It happened again with COVID. Bro, my store was closed. We got a lawsuit because the wheelchair guy, like, there's like a scam. Like, my wife's factory was closed. My store was closed. What saved me was my art.
Wow.
Again. So to be honest with you, I, instead of having stocks and buying
Fart coin?
what I know is art, so I buy really expensive T-shirts, really expensive, whenever I can, art, and that's kind of like my. And then
Some people would think that's risky.
well,
Some
it is.
people-
It
yeah.
is. Look at what happened with the fires. We were a mile away from the fires. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of people lost their homes, and imagine the art that was lost in the Palisades.
Originals, a lot of originals. Yep.
So, yes, but there's also look at what happened to the market this week with the imports.
Yeah.
So it's all risk. It's just I invest in what I know and what I love, and what I love is art. My father was a gallery guy, music guy, so like it's been more than 2 or 3 times that art has really, really, really helped.
Okay, so you grew up though in a lineage where art was the blood, right? I mean, it seems like this is not just something you stumbled upon. Like, art's a part of your DNA, literally.
Well, when my father died, I was 9, and I moved to New Orleans, and he had a gallery, and he was the founder of Preservation Hall with his friend.
Preservation Hall is so people don't know. My sister confirmed it's a huge, being a New Orleans resident, she confirmed it's a massive institution, iconic. But for people who don't know,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the rainbow of it's like the probably the most influential jazz place in the world. That is in New Orleans, the city of jazz, you know. So my father wasn't around anymore, but he had so much art everywhere, and I mean, I was in New Orleans from nine to 18 years old. Then I moved back to Mexico City to go to college. But yeah, I was around all that art and around music and around everything. And now I see myself and I'm like, man, it's probably because of my father that, you know, even though he died I was so young, I was really, my mom built it up to him, and she was on my ear all about this stuff. So it's probably why I'm so passionate about music and
I think it also
everything.
informs, I think also, you know, the whole New Orleans thing is crazy to me because I think it's one thing to move from, like, you're young, you move from Mexico City to SoCal or Texas. There's a huge similarity in the culture, intersection, right? You go to New Orleans, that's not just like a whole different part of America. That's a microcosm, not only within America, it's a microcosm within Louisiana, within the South, within the world. It's like, so you end up in this insanely iconic place, which is its own thing internationally, but is also very American, you know. Like, was that a moment of explosion for you, or was there friction at first? Like, how does that go from being a kid in Mexico City, then going to being a kid in New Orleans?
Bro,
like,
they threw me into this school, McDonald 15. I didn't speak any English, and like, dude, I've never seen black people in my life. I was from Mexico City, from the hood, and I look white because my dad was Russian. So I used to get my ass kicked, and like, it was just crazy, you know, like. And then
you got your ass kicked in Mexico City or New Orleans?
No, in New Orleans.
Really?
Because I was the only Mexican, white-looking guy in this public school, you know, and then it lasted 6 months. Now we were all friends. I learned a lot. I learned about, like, I like hip hop and you know, I went to Lollapalooza. Like, it's such a music.
You mean
town.
the original '95 Lollapalooza?
Yeah, Rage Against the Machine and all that shit.
Iconic.
Anyways,
it's like the Woodstock of our generation.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, man. New Orleans was hard. I learned how to speak English by just.
But a lot of people don't know what's going on down there. And like my buddy, who's a director out here, I remember him a couple years ago being like, he's a skater too, ex-skater, right? All of us like 40-year-old ex-skater people. And he was like, no, he's like, New Orleans is insane, bro. You wouldn't believe it. And I was like, I can't even see it. I hadn't been there till like 3 or 4 years ago. I was like, I can't even understand what you're talking about, you know?
Right.
And I hear this from people I highly trust and respect, and like, nah, there's some crazy shit going on down there, dude, you know?
Bro,
like,
when the sun comes out, shit changes. There's voodoo. There's like Creole.
it's an energy,
Like,
man.
dude, the river, there's music, like 100 jazz bands playing at the same time. It's a trip. It's dark and like I don't know how to explain it, but I haven't been in a place in America that is so culturally like relevant. Like, it just has
Relevant,
so many,
you said.
Yeah. It's so cool, and there's something about that town. I mean, you know, I grew up there, so I can only speak good things about it. I haven't been back since Katrina, but I can't wait to get back.
Okay, I got to talk. We were going to go back to the LA thing because you said cultural relevance, right? For me, I find often that sometimes the biggest bubbles are the most culturally, like, and I don't understand how it works. Sometimes the biggest bubbles are the ones that are most culturally relevant to the larger part of the whole, you know? I still think I'm like still the guy out here who thinks LA is the center of the universe, and the laws of physics and everything don't apply here, you know. There is something to be said about how we are completely separated by this desert and ocean from basically the rest of the world, you know. But like, you know, I run into this conversation a lot about like, oh, LA's dead, the relevance, yada yada yada, and like, you know, it begs the question. Does cultural relevance need physicality anymore with how the internet's gone? And you know, it's a question about Melrose too, because we're saying that there's still an energy to physicality, and you still need it, and you there's no other place you'd be than right here on this piece of earth, right? But do you think in the 21st century, where we're at moving forward, that cultural relevance is is based in physicality.
I think so. A lot of people tell me you're crazy, like yeah, but I think people need, especially when you're traveling, you need to go and feel something. It doesn't feel like anything ordering online or anything, and I feel like even new generations are gonna want the experience. So I think there's a universe for shops like this, but I guess we'll see. But I think so. You know, even if I continue doing business online, I don't want to not have a store. I'd rather have, look, I have a store instead of a nice, beautiful, clean office in a building. I could have that, but I wouldn't be seeing all these things that I see here, you know?
But what's the difference then, ultimately, like, and every difference, monetary, lifestyle, output, what's the difference between saying, hey, we're online only, you know, versus we're brick and mortar and online is an ancillary part of the brick and mortar? What's the big difference, you know, between, you know, going that direction where you know what, we're online, that's it?
Well, look, I don't think we're going to go only online because that's just not our nature. But I mean, I think all business have to adapt to the new changes. Like, look, we're doing a video right now.
Yep.
So I understand how important video is and socials and stuff, but I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop doing one to do the other, you know? So
both happen at the same time?
I think so.
But do you find that you ever come up against people who are like, no, you got to choose? You got to figure, you got to.
Well, I know a lot of really successful business that only do online, you know? But to me, this is like an office. So we do ship stuff out of here, you know? I don't know. I guess time will tell. Well, I'm open to change, though.
I find, you know, and it's like a 21st century thing, being a guy who's from the late 20th century, it's not like I have a lot of context here, but like, I feel like online, like you could buy mushrooms online, right? Like you could buy a lot of shit online. What happens is you develop a process for being more profitable and streamlined, right? But there's and both sides agree, the buyer and the seller agree that we're going to, the face, and all that comes to the face, which is responsibility and familiarity and culpability, no matter what happens. We are both agreeing that that's over there, right? Because if you have an issue with, like, just simple, if you have an issue with a product and it's online only, you might never get that fixed, dude. You might never get that fixed. If you have a shop, which is certainly limited because maybe more efforts are going into maintaining brick and mortar than the online thing, if you have a problem, you're going to go in, and not only are you going to like hopefully fix it, but you're going to
go on Instagram and say it.
You're going to go, yeah. I mean, it's true. So you know, I feel like it obviously makes sense. The internet is like a way to like streamline everything and just mass produce and have the streamlined way of existence. But I do think you just totally, and it's obvious, but you just totally lose this one element of life and consumerism, which is kind of like core, right? Of like the buying experience.
The experience, the smell.
Right.
I mean, dude, we have incense and shit burning in the store all the time because I think the experience is important, and the music curation and you know, everything is important, and I don't want to lose that. Right. Maybe people don't care about that, but I do. You know, it's funny about our experience with online. Some people buy like 5 things of the same thing in different sizes to try it, and they ship it back 4 times. So there's a lot.
Are you cool with that?
No, I mean, we do it if we have to, but like, it's just, so we started taking no returns on our website personally. But imagine the waste of energy and resources that takes, you know? So us being a recyclable company, we're also thinking about things that make, I mean, it's just, I've created a crazy thing that I'm shooting myself in my foot because by taking the recyclable flag, you know, I also have like vegetarian sensibilities. I drive a fucking electric car. Like it's a whole lifestyle. So you can't just be recycling and all of a sudden not care about all these other issues and things. what I'm trying to say is that we're a sensitive company that sees what's happening globally, and we're still making clothes because we want to express ourselves. So to do any type of waste is bad because it's not on brand. And it's really hard to maintain and to continue having a brand that tries to have all these limitations or beliefs, you know? But hey, we've been here for long enough, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, this is the brand, right? But it seems like I think what happens is people who do some sort of artistic output or some sort of clothing, whatever. It's not always that they are the core of it. And I think one of the reasons I identify with you and I just pose a million things to you and want to hear your response is because, you know, this is one of those rare times where like you, and a lot of it's due to the internet as well, you can be the product. They go to you for you know? And I like if it's not for this exact style, you're still going to do it and they're still going to dig it and you're still going to keep going, right? This style does not define you, you know?
No.
You define the style, but this style does not define you.
This is just one, this is like this is a concept.
A project,
Yes.
you know?
Like, for example, we've done really clean denim for people. We've done like production for like Thundercat. We make his merch. Like, you know, like we have the sensibilities to do other stuff. We're choosing to tell this maximalist over the top story because we think it's cool, and I think it would be a cool piece to have with your cool, nice high-end glasses and accessories. Like, I don't think that it's gonna go away, you know, but we don't only, or our taste is not just about vintage or recycling, you know?
Yeah.
It's just one of the things that we're into.
Well, and you know, you mentioned Thundercat, and like it's always amazing to me. Every week I feel like I'm learning a new collaboration. So like I think you should just roll off. Like it would just be good to get a list of like, even if it's recent, like, and there's so many people do, but like who are these? Throw out some names of people you're styling that walk into this store, just so people have an understanding of like who's consuming this.
Well, lately we had a Rolling Loud. My friend from Cobra Studio made a hat, and we sold some hats for Peso Pluma and Santa Fe Clan. My friend Alejandra styles Ziza, so we get a lot of stuff to her, to Ziza. It's just crazy because, let me think what other brands. I mean, I'm friends with Union. Sometimes I help them with some stuff, and we're working on collaboration. We're working with
Wasn't
Pleasures.
Soulja Boy in here, by the way?
Soulja Boy.
I saw Soulja Boy with 2 big ass bags. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, no, like all the rappers, like
All the
Nav
rappers, yeah.
comes here. A lot of rappers or their stylists come, or a lot of actors, or whenever they're doing like a video, they come and pull. You know, we do like things like that. We do custom pieces for them. It's interesting, you know? And whenever we can't handle it, like my wife Sarah owns this company with her brother, Scott and Scott, and they manufacture things. They did like production for Rihanna, for Beyonce, and Kendrick Lamar for the Super Bowl, like, and they're doing some like special force manufacturing shit, you know? So if it gets overboard and we got a lot of demand, we have like a second, we could probably get help from them.
You could scale up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, they make a bunch of product for a bunch of brands and stuff. So it's exciting. We're always able to create anything that needs to be created, not necessarily on a public collaboration, just on manufacturing or, I mean, I became a Garmento after all these years. I know how the fabrics react, so we can actually.
That came later, you're saying. That came through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like going to school.
Yeah.
I'm in downtown every morning, going to the wash houses, to smelling chemicals, going to the factories, going sourcing, you know. It's a whole world. Maybe we'll talk about it at some point, but it's really interesting, at least to me, but it's probably, I don't know, it might be boring for some people. I'm sure like I could tell you Sammy's camera and you'll like tell me.
Oh, no, yeah. Forget it.
be
It's a
crazy.
5-hour block right there.
Yeah. So it's the same, you know.
real quick, because I don't want to, I actually don't want to let this go, and this is going to seem like it came out of nowhere. What's up with this floor, bro? And it's the reason why I love coming here. When I need to shake things up, you walk in the store and this fucking floor just, and it's a work of art. It's like, I think if you look at it from one section, you're not sure what happened. Did somebody throw paint? When you look at the whole thing, you're like, damn, like this is a canvas. This is something that gets excavated in like 3,000 years, and they're like trying to figure what the hell this was and what it meant, Like, how did this happen?
Well, so the stars in All Twisted Stars were my tag when I was a kid. So I would just do those, like, just scribble them. And obviously they weren't in color. I was just always being in school or whatever. I was just maybe just doing them all the time. And around COVID, when it was kind of slow, I got bored and started painting on the floor. I mean, I do some paintings and stuff, like abstract shit for fun for myself. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to start painting the floor. And then it just became this, and it's always changing. So every time, if it's slow, or if I'm by myself, I put some music on and listen to the playlist that I'm into that week and just go ham. And now it's kind of, as you see, there's some sections that I haven't moved the furniture around, but yeah. But it's a trip because people come and take selfies of the floor, like and I've designed some clothing that's going to have them now in the future. So yeah, it's good that you notice.
I think, how can you not? It's like the first thing that it actually, like, a lot of places, I think the floor is important, particularly in retail. But what happens here is that you can't not notice it, even at eye level when you're looking ahead. It doesn't. It just pops out, and it's the combination of the colors and the lines, which are very unusual, I think, if you're not a fucking artist, right? And they just fucking pop out, and they rip you and they grab you.
But as a retailer, like, the first rule of retail, you don't want to have distracting shit everywhere because you want people to focus. Like, if you go to Rodeo again or any high-end store, they're going to have a minimalist display of presenting the way because they are there for business. They don't want to distract you for anything, right? They can't play the music that they're into because they have so many limitations. So this place is free. It makes me be able to have the luxury of have the freedom to put all kinds of art without any, hopefully, without any issues, play any music I want, all the distractions, the smells,
Yeah.
It's actually incredible for me,
But going back to what you just said about the stores and minimalism, do you think that that's a product of our time and consumerism? This whole idea of pointed buying experiences, very narrowly intentional, trying to control the consumer's experience with the music. Do you think that's a product of our times? Maybe it's American and consumerist, or do you think that is they've been doing that since fucking Roman times? You walk into the fucking bead store and they're fucking thinking about how the guy walks in and what he's going to do. Do you think it's been this conjured up and intentional always, consumerism and mercantilism?
Well, I think there's a formula now that people have expect to see premium and high-end to have it presented in a certain way. It's a luxury to me not to present it like that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I know, like, for example, if I'm working on a new brand, if I ever actually opened a brick and mortar about it, it's more like brutalist, it's more like tonal, obviously, completely the opposite of this. And I won't have this freedom, But I know what it would take to consumers to feel like it's premium,
Yeah.
But hopefully I'm able to have a space like this always, because I enjoy the hurricane.
No, when people need it. This was the biggest heartbreak in living in New York, was that you'd have your spot, restaurant, shop, whatever, you'd have it, the bar, and it would be home, and it would be everything. It'd be like where you go to rejuvenate your soul and your mind and your everything, and one day or the next, it's gone, and it's just like something just gets ripped from you, you know. And that was something I struggled with a lot living in New York, is that constant heartbreak of your shit just disappearing due to the whims of economic forces and marketplace. And so I think this is a whole other endeavor you're on to maintain this physicality, however, and that's like art, dude. It's the same thing.
No, and we've been stubborn to be here, you know. We like, dude, between like, you know, Melrose traffic, sometimes it's up and down, you know. You really have to, like, you know, a normal business person would have probably closed this place 20 times, you know, because sometimes it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But luckily, I'm hustling on 9 other things at the same time, and we're able to maintain. But yeah, it's crazy to keep. But I think it's a great experience to come to Melrose and to see, even if it's not your thing, you'll be surprised by the freaks and the crazies. You'll be very inspired in general. Not only Reconstruct, the neighborhood and everything is really, really worth checking out. And I mean this to even people especially from people from LA, because like you said, people from other places, it's like when I go to New York, I end up being in Broadway, and you tell New Yorkers, I was walking to Broadway, and you're like, why? You know, like, why did you even go there?
Yeah.
I just think that if you're looking for like an underground scene, that it's getting smaller and smaller all the time. Melrose, I think it's great. And here, I mean, we're just going to be recycling, making dope pieces. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, people should come check it out, at least to take the picture of a floor.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, that was our first episode, right? So
Shit.
I think we're gonna keep this going. You're gonna bring in your people.
Yeah.
We're gonna hopefully talk to more people. And
We're going to talk to some artists and maybe some
artists.
designers. And
I hopefully, I mean, it just seems like we uncovered like so many bookends that we have to go back to. So we'll figure out a way to constantly revisit stuff like that. But
yeah.
my alarm's going off for my parking meter. So yeah, man, I think it was solid.